It was one of the most memorable moments of President Barack Obama's second term. America's first black president singing Amazing Grace near the site of a racially motivated mass shooting inside a Charleston church. The serenade came at the end of his eulogy for Pastor Clementa Pinckney, one of 9 people killed just a week earlier. But the day started on a much different note, with the Supreme Court solidifying same-sex marriage rights for couples across the U.S. Here's Cody Keenan on one remarkable day in the White House with 2 very different presidential speeches. Where a speech is given is also not random. And so in the book, among the 10 days is when the Obamacare decision comes down, and also the same-sex marriage case. And so you write a lot about the fact that, again, I'll have you talk about it, but depending on the outcome of the case, that determined where that speech would be delivered. And also, people may not realize, you have to write a speech for every outcome. Jeff Nussbaum wrote a book called Undelivered. You're probably familiar with that. Basically, so for same-sex marriage, whatever, there isn't less that here's the speech because here's the decision. You had to be ready for everything, and where it got delivered mattered.
Yeah, we'd find out about Supreme Court rulings the same way everybody else would, by watching cable television. There's no heads up for the White House. We would have a lawyer in the courtroom too who'd email in their take on the decision, but you can't make the country wait several hours to hear from the president for something as consequential as marriage equality or the Affordable Care Act. And we'd spent this entire week, even while grappling with Charleston, knowing that there's a very real chance that millions of Americans are about to lose their health insurance, knowing that millions of Americans were about to be told, sorry, you're a second-class citizen, you can't get married like the rest of us. And all of that was kind of infusing. There was a real anxiety in the West Wing about these cases, about what was going to come out of Charleston. So we had to write a speech for every outcome, rather than make the country wait. And those are some pretty dark speeches to write, you know. And that's really all. That's kind of one of the threads that runs through this book is, who are we? What do we actually believe, that we're all created equal, or are we going to stand up to white supremacy, or are we going to allow racially motivated killings? Are we going to allow people to have to walk to work every day past the Confederate flag? Are we going to allow working class Americans to be told they can't have health insurance, or gay Americans to be told they can't get married? And fortunately, the events in the book ultimately ended on an upswing. But the reason I call it the 10 Days in the Battle for America is we're still engaged in this battle. And I took the thesis for this book from his Selma speech, where he described Selma as not a clash of armies, but a clash of wills, a contest to determine the true meaning of America. And that's really what politics is all about.
And talk about the delivery of the speech, where it happened. Rose Garden, I'm thinking usually Rose Garden versus press briefing.
Rose Garden is generally good news. Briefing room is generally bad news. And we would often base that around the crowds that we were going to have too. You know, I never liked writing speeches that were to be delivered at the White House, especially the East Room, because it's stuffy. It's basically a living museum. People come in suits and dresses and uncomfortable, and you don't know if you're allowed to stand and applaud or not. Whereas if you actually just get out into America, you know that you've got an audience that's a little bit more comfortable. For the victory scenarios, there was no doubt we were going to do it in the Rose Garden, and they were 2 very different moments. You know, the ACA for us was basically a sigh of relief. I mean, Obama said he always knew we'd win because the case was nonsense. And this gets into the concept of who people are and the lenses we bring and the life experience we have. Everyone who worked in the White House had health insurance, good health insurance, and we weren't at risk of losing it. So you have to inhabit the minds of people who might work 2 jobs and suddenly wouldn't have health care anymore. But there were a lot of gay staffers and friends in the White House. And I was dreading having to look them in the eye if the Supreme Court said, you can't get married, right after I had gotten engaged myself. So that morning was sheer euphoria in the West Wing. You could hear the cheering in the hallways. We were watching the joyous scenes at the Supreme Court on television, and that is a moment where you just want to be out in the Rose Garden with all of your colleagues.
I was going to ask, when I was reading the book, you know, how is it you write for the really bad outcomes, like, you know, no same-sex marriage permitted and the, you know, Health Care Act knocked down and all of that. But then you kind of answered that question in the book, which was by explaining, fellow Chicagoans, you'll understand this, that after 34 years of Chicago sports fandom, you knew what losing was all about.
Yeah, there's a direct relationship with me being a Democrat and me being a Chicago sports fan. You never hope for the best, you know. You hope for the best, but you're always prepared for the worst. So I was not cocky about either decision. Obama was. He would not read the drafts in case of a loss. That's just glass.
Superstition?
That's just glass he wouldn't break. I don't know if it's superstition or confidence or what. He also knew they were well written enough that he wouldn't have to work on them too long if he had to.
Let's talk about the same-sex marriage case, Obergefell. What people may not know is that because he was supposed to be giving that speech, and it was like, where's Obama? He's supposed to be giving the speech, and he actually was talking to Obergefell on the steps of the Supreme Court.
Yeah, it was great. I was in the outer Oval Office, which is the little room just right off the Oval where his assistants work, and just handing them the speech to be ready to go. And the curtains are pulled, the Rose Garden's right on the other side, so you know there are a few hundred people out there. And I just asked one of his assistants who was gay, and just he was a pretty reticent guy who didn't really smile on the job. He was all business, but that morning he was just grinning from ear to ear. And I was like, "What's the story? Who's he on the phone with?" And he says, "Check this out," and turns up the volume on CNN a little bit. And he's interviewing Jim Obergefell, or he's talking to Jim Obergefell on the phone while Obergefell is live on CNN. And there's a 7-second delay, so we were trying to hear both sides of the conversation, but it was a really neat little moment.
Obama, in that speech on that day, began to extemporize. He went beyond the text because he had to get onto a helicopter and go. And you said that may have been a reflection of his about the change he's gone through.
Yeah, that was fascinating because I loved it when he ad-libbed in speeches. You just get pure unfiltered Obama, but he would usually, the teleprompter writer would stop it and he'd ad-lib for a while and he'd know where to come back to. When he does it at the end of his speech, he's got to build his own runway, and that's always fascinating. So I was prepared to run back to my office because I knew when the speech was going to end, because 5 minutes after he finishes, Marine One lands on the South Lawn, and the military is nothing if not precise. He keeps going. And he talks about, and I think this gets at his evolution on the issue, the same evolution that a lot of people had, that it was not today's decision was not the consequence of just a ruling by the Supreme Court, but it was not even just decades of committed activism and advocacy, but it was countless little acts of love where people would come out to their parents and their parents would accept them for who they were. And once that reached a tipping point, the country was finally ready for this. And he likened it to Bobby Kennedy, and throwing a pebble into a pond and creating ripples. And I was just standing there fascinated as to where he'd be going with this. And I asked him afterwards, he was talking even slower than normal. It took forever. And I asked him afterwards, why are you talking so slow? I assumed he was genuinely moved by the fact that the country had come so far so fast on a civil rights and equal rights issue. And he said, "No, man, I was just tired because I was rewriting your Charleston remarks all night long."
Right.
But I know that wasn't true because he gave me the draft back at 11 p.m., which is early for him. I think he was genuinely moved by it.
And indeed, he had to get to Charleston, right? He was running a little late and had to get there. This is the Amazing Grace moment. And so I just have a few more minutes left with you, but I do want you to talk about that, because that for me is your description of the reactions going on everywhere, and people wonder. You can share as much as you want today without folks having read the book, but was it planned? Did Obama know he was going to do it? Did you know he was going to do it? And the reaction of people, you give us this almost 360 perspective when it happened.
Yeah, it was not planned. It's not the type of thing you write into the text, sing here. He had rewritten the back half of the remarks the night before, and he had included the lyrics to Amazing Grace. And it hadn't occurred to me that he might sing it. And we were on the helicopter from the South Lawn to Andrews Air Force Base, and he handed me back the third draft and said, if it feels right, I might sing it. And so only 5 of us heard that. The First Lady was there, Dennis McDonough, the Chief of Staff, Valerie Jarrett. We're the only ones who knew. And I think part of it was because the White House was so joyous that morning, that he had a full heart, but he was still mindful as anybody, that he was about to go eulogize 9 people who'd been murdered by white supremacists, and you've got to juggle these emotions. But I failed in my responsibility. I forgot to let anybody else know that he was thinking about singing. So it was a surprise to everyone else. The White House staff at the arena came racing out onto the floor. People back at the White House were like, "Dude, did you know he was going to do this?" And I said, "Well, actually, yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you."
But the feeling in that church, you were there.
I was not. I was on the airplane. I stayed on the airplane in Charleston.
That's right. Okay. So for the folks that were there who reported, because you write about it, so
I was watching it on CNN from the plane. It
was an incredible emotional moment, and even for the pastor, the various people who were there, he just floored him. Yeah, I had to stay on the plane because he took the last 2 pages of the speech with him in the motorcade, and I didn't want to take the risk of trying to make edits from my laptop with a wireless card and having it just crap out and having him no eulogy on stage. So I stayed on the plane to finish it up and watched on CNN. But I'd had a little experience with him speaking the AME church. And that this was a church service that he was going to, and people were wearing their Sunday best even though it was a Friday, and the organist is jumping in and plays as people are singing. He's going to sing, and they're going to be there to catch him and join in.
But it was still a fascinating thing to see and watch. And he actually paused for about 11 seconds before he started singing, and my first thought was, oh no, people at home are going to think there's a page missing. But he was just gathering himself, and then it's just this beautiful moment where the organist jumps in, the bishops behind him jump up and start singing, everybody's singing. And what was really special about it was, how often do you see what was really a black church service with a black president eulogizing a black pastor to a largely black audience, where he was in full preacher cadence, tying together progressivism and faith and American exceptionalism. This is not the type of thing that most Americans watch on television. And people were watching around the world, and it was just a really special moment.
Again, the book is Grace, President Obama and 10 Days in the Battle for America. It's available in stores and online now. We'll be right back.